So after decades of Bob Lazar being ridiculed, called a liar, is he finally having the final laugh? Is he vindicated? That's what we're talking about this week. And if you are new to our channel, please like, subscribe, hit that little bell notification so it tells you about new episodes coming up. It really does help. We talk about the videos.
Yep.
So Tic Tac, Gimbal, and the Speedster videos. These are three videos that over the last 10, 15 years have been recorded, but now the US government actually says they are genuine, and we're still investigating these things. We're going to talk about ATIP and stuff in another video, but that these things are still being investigated. Pentagon and Senate hearings. Serious reporters and serious newspapers like the New York Times talking about UFOs. Wow, 2020 has been pretty crazy, ain't it? The Gimbal video in particular is related to Bob.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you talk about how Bob says the flying saucers worked.
The craft that he saw operated. Yeah.
So he said basically one of the things that's interesting about these things is they don't just they can take off vertically, but they don't then just fly around like that when they're actually things, because they've got these gravity generators underneath and they point downwards. Bob describes the propulsion system in real detail. He describes a system that is mechanical in nature in some ways, but that creates a gravitational well below the vessel. The vessel then moves towards that gravity well. This is unlike so many other descriptions we've heard. Flip on their side and go travel that way. So it's like a car flipping up on this thing and traveling towards, with the wheels aiming in the direction you're traveling, sort of thing. Now, that's not how most people think. So if most faked videos on Facebook, whatever, when you see these UFOs, they fly around like that, or they're just a light globe or things. We've not seen many videos where you see a vehicle that does that, but the Gimbal video does. Everybody looked at that video that believed Bob and went, that's what Bob was talking about. That's it.
Yep.
And some people have tried to debunk it and said, oh, well, it's not really rotating. It's the way that it's called a FLIR system that was tracking the vehicle. And I'll put a link in the description about a bloke that works with these FLIR technologies. He's an engineer that works on them, and he explains far better than I ever could why it's not a lot of these debunking of the video where it says, oh, it's not really rotating, it's an effect of the optics, is not true. Whatever it is rotating. And let's remember that the Pentagon has had these videos for years. They've been analysed repeatedly. Pilots that have been flying for decades saw these vehicles and didn't know what the hell they were looking at. There's lots of other areas that people have mocked Bob over the years.
Yeah.
One of them was just like that. Have you seen the videos he took? So he went up in the desert when he knew the aircraft was supposed to fly on a Wednesday because the highway was quietest on a Wednesday, so there was less likely chance of getting seen. So he knew about these, and why would he go up there with his mates and show it
at a party? Yeah, watching the test craft being flown out of S4. Yeah, and he knew the exact time that these craft would appear, do these incredible maneuvers that defy our modern understanding of physics in the current scientific world. There's just too many coincidences for me with Bob. There's just too many things that he's got right, and too many things that wouldn't align if he wasn't telling the truth.
Well, this is again the argument is, why would he? How did he know they were going to be there? They saw something. How would he know that was going to happen?
Exactly. Unless
but the other thing is,
privy to the information that others aren't.
Yeah, but then that's not the argument is, well, why did he do that? And he talks about it now. He says he was basically banished from S4. He normally would get phone calls and dragged up there at weird times. So his wife thought he was having an affair. Mm-hmm. He'd obviously found out about all this later, and his phones and things were tracked, and he agreed to be monitored while he was working at S4, and he thought that was perfectly normal. because of the type of thing he was working on, which you would. If you work on an alien aircraft, you have to expect the government are going to watch you a bit, ain't you? So, unbeknown to him, his wife was having an affair. But the people, EG&G or whatever, knew. And they said one of the things they don't like is their people to have, they want them to have a nice, stable, fat home life. And if you haven't, they worry, and they worry about how you might react when you find out. So they kind of banished him from S4, but he didn't know this. He just stopped getting phone calls. So he thought he would sort of like show off a bit. And this is kind of, you know, it kind of is a bit Bob, really, you know. And this is a bloke that he would go up into the desert and have firework displays once a year, fireworks that he'd made himself. And these firework displays got epic, apparently, to the point where the police actually stop him doing them because they were getting dangerous, sort of thing. They were getting big, you know. This is kind of his character, his personality, that he's a bit of an extrovert. Again, going back to this is a guy that when he knew hookers and decided to help them start a brothel. You know, this is a bit of a character, put it that way.
Yeah.
So when he got banished from S4, he kind of went, screw you. You know, and so they went on a party and looked at the UFOs 3 weekends on the trot with a barbecue out and what have you. You know, people have sort of pointed out that as a reason why it's not true. And actually, I think it adds credence to the story to me, because knowing him as we do, it kind of makes sense. And he says it's his biggest regret. He says he goes to sleep sometimes just like kicking himself, because if he hadn't have done that, he could have carried on working on the technology. And what else could he have found out? You know, I like it when he says things like that as well, because it rings true that he actually has regrets about it. And a lot of people that are the UFO people would be quite like, you know, you know, he's a hero, he's a whistleblower and everything. And he sort of sits there and goes, I whistleblowed because I had to, because I thought they were going to kill me. And I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
But him there going up there and showing off to his mates is kind of consistent with what we know of his personality, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, that's credence to the story. In fact, to be honest, I don't think there's anything as time goes on that won't probably be proven. It's what happens.
Yeah.
The truth tellers get vindicated and the liars get exposed. That's what happens over time with all lies.
Yeah. Other than his education, though, I don't see any areas of the story with Bob that hasn't been. Well, he said gravity is a wave. We now know it is.
But the fact that
they thought it was a graviton, it was a particle thing.
His education's quite minor to me, because the fact that he doesn't have an educational history but is clearly really technically competent in STEM fields indicates he probably did have quite a high level of education. And the fact that his history is deleted and there's nothing, not where he said, but blank. It's obviously been deleted. It's obviously been removed. His history's been tampered with.
Yeah, back at a time when it was easier to do that, and this is what the government would do. If we talk about, so why do we think he got the job at S4 then? Right, because there must have been other people that were better qualified, better thing. And he was obviously, they must have known he was a bit of a personality. So why do you think he would actually have got the job at S4? Why did they even hire him?
Because he had a particle accelerator in his bedroom and he'd built a rocket powered car in his, you know.
Yeah. I think
a jet powered car in his teens, early 20s. He's demonstrating quite a high level of scientific understanding of things, and probably a bit of an outside of the box thinker, because he did it all in his own garage. So they probably gave him a shot, because they were getting nowhere with all the scientists that they were using, because they were compartmentalizing the information too much and not allowing the scientists truly understand what they were working on, only little compartmentalized bits of it, which makes progress really, really slow.
I think that's dead on. I think he got the job because they thought he was a bit of a free thinker. Like you said, they weren't getting anywhere, so they were thinking, okay, let's think outside the box. And I possibly think they thought as well, if he did tell anybody, we can really easily discredit this guy.
Yeah,
and they did,
which they
proved for 30 years.
So if it's true, why not just kill him? He's an obvious threat. Well, he says they tried. He says on the motorway, on the day of an interview with George Knapp, they blew out his tyres. It's always the mysterious day. This is one area of his story I actually do struggle with, because I genuinely believe these people don't miss. So why is Bob Lazar still alive? Well, in part 3, we'll discuss a theory. Maybe he has some leverage.
I actually think on the day that if they had have killed him, if they had have just got rid of him, we wouldn't even know who Bob was. But he was a lucky bugger, and he's survived 30 years, and over the years we've slowly realised him more and more truthful. But his stories, it's stayed consistent, and that's what I always like about his story. The only area that he maybe has changed his mind over the years was initially he thought he'd actually seen an alien. He actually thought he walked past a window one day and he just saw half a second and he saw two men stood over like a chair with what looked like a little grey alien. So he actually back in 91, 92 used to say he'd seen it. He'd seen it.
The information is so compartmentalised, and the agencies involved in hiding this probably for the last 70 years have had so many disinformation campaigns that they could have just been messing with him, and they was deliberately meant to see that as he was walking past the window, and it wasn't actually real, or it could have been real. So I think he's changed his mind on that bit of the story, because it's the most easy part for them people to ridicule him about.
Well, I think he's grown up as well. He's maybe just realised that what he saw for half a second could have been lots of things. And may have just been. I think he's basically said he thinks it was like a crash test dummy now. He thinks it might have just been a trying to figure out. They had one of the chairs from the vehicle, or a mock-up for one of the chairs, and they were trying to figure out what sort of size a person they were trying to deal with, or an alien. What sort of sizes are there? So he says that's probably more likely. So over the years, he's sort of thought about it and reconsidered what he saw for half a second. And that's one of the things I really like about Bob's story as well, that he doesn't get drawn in to speculate too much. He'll talk about things, and he'll talk about the science things, but he says he regularly says, "I can only really tell you what I had my hands on. I can tell you about the technology because I had my hands on it. I worked on it. All this other stuff you keep trying to draw me in on, and you keep trying to draw me in on UFOs, and I'm not talking about it because I don't know. I don't know if everything I saw in those reports that they gave me at first, where they give little overviews of all the other technology, I don't know if it's true. It might be, but also it might be misinformation, because he's convinced as well that they would have told him stuff that wasn't true, so that if it started to leak, it's something they used to do. They would tell you a load of stuff. They'd tell you like 10 truths and one lie, but they would tell everybody a different lie. So then if it leaked out and the lie appeared, they knew who said it, because they said, that's Bob's lie. He did it. And he says, so he's absolutely certain he was, and he's been accused of being a shill and somebody that's been sharing misinformation. So is it possible you were tricked? And he says, yeah, it's possible.
Quite possible. Yeah.
But the gravity generator, that is true. It's not faked, because I know the science. It can't have been faked.
Bob also talks about there being a big breakthrough in another compartmentalised area of research whilst he was working/finishing to work there, which also coincides with the ex-director of Lockheed Martin, Ben Rich, making a statement in 1989 saying that they now have the power to take ET home, which was coincidentally the same time that Bob worked at S4, which is interesting because that year, 1989,
keeps coming up.
Keeps coming up.
We talk about his being consistent story as well, though. Is one of the things when George Knapp was going through the story, and obviously George Knapp being an investigative reporter, not a UFO guy. He's become a UFO guy, but he wasn't at the time. He's an investigative reporter, multi-award winning. Didn't just want to prove Bob right. He wanted to prove him wrong as well, as much as, because that would have been just as good a story if it had all been BS, but one of the things George Knapp did was said, would you take a lie detector? And Bob went, yeah, didn't even hesitate. Took 4 of them. All of them were agreed that at the very least he believes what he was saying was true. You know, and I know lie detectors aren't the most reliable technology in the world, but he took 4.
Yeah, but his willingness to take them and the fact that he passed them all, it kind of corroborates him telling the truth, and again puts it into what's more likely: Bob telling a lie, or the American government lying. And I think that the American government lying is far more likely than Bob lying.
Yeah, no, I agree with you most definitely, and I generally think there's been a witch hunt against Bob over the years. You know, there's been his birth certificate was destroyed. You know, that upset the hell out of his mom. That his education was erased. Los Alamos. He said he was basically headhunted by Kirkmeyer, a company that headhunted him. George Knapp phoned Kirkmeyer and said, "Did he work for you? Yes. Can I have the records? Yes." 2 years later, they still hadn't shared the records, and he finally got back in touch with somebody from Kirkmeyer, and they said, "We don't know who you're talking about. He never existed." I'm like, whoa, you said he did last time. Last time we spoke, you told me he did. Now you're telling me he doesn't. And I've got this other evidence to say he definitely worked at Los Alamos. So why are you now telling me he doesn't? You know, there's been accusations on I mean, people that like debunk him or try to debunk him on Twitter and things have done some awful things. There's a video on there at the moment about how they're asking one of his mates about did he ever hire people. You know, he had like the Photoshop thing for a bit. Yeah. Did he ever hire young girls there? And they were, well, yeah. You know, on a Saturday morning or whatever. I goes, oh, right, okay. What was it? And he was really interested in young girls, was he? And then, and was there at the brothel that he worked at, were there underage girls there as well? I mean, they're not subtly implying that he's some sort of sexual predator or something, which is the next bit you do if you try to get somebody discredited, is you call them a pedo. And that crap sticks. You know? It's a bloody witch hunt.
Yep.
So, element 115. That's the one. When I asked, again on Facebook, what is the one thing that convinced people most that Bob was telling the truth? Element 115.